And a very happy Tuesday to you at 12:07 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, you remember a few months ago when California Attorney General Rob Bonta said he was suing Big Oil and specifically Exxon because they did not tell us the truth when it came to recycling, and that even advanced recycling, like turning plastic into jet fuel, is a waste and doesn't really do anything, and it's bad for the environment?
Oh, yeah.
And then remember how he got on a plane to do TV in New York?
Oh, yes, because what's the point of pulling a stunt if you don't get to be on TV?
Well, the ongoing lawsuits about environmental causes in California hasn't stopped Rob Bonta from being a media whore, because he got on a plane to do Meet the Press Now on NBC. That's pretty much only on their YouTube channel.
Joining me now on set, we're very happy you're in the studio, is California Attorney General Rob Bonta. We know there was a plane ride involved in getting you here, and we're delighted to see you here in person.
Grateful to be here.
So he flew all the way across the country to do an internet show?
Yes.
That seems about right.
Now, in that interview, he talked about a lot of his lawsuits against the Trump administration, but he was also asked about messaging from Democrats going into next year's midterms.
Where do you think Democrats need to be on response to President Trump? Obviously, as Attorney General, you've told us about your legal strategy. Is there a messaging component or another aspect of this that you think needs more attention?
Yeah, I think we can always do more. We can always do better. I think reaching our potential and always striving to be better is important.
I'll tell you, we dodged a bullet that this guy passed on running for governor.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
It's still very interesting that he's not running for governor, though, because he was pretty intent on telling everybody that he could that he was running for governor until, and he might say it's because of Kamala, but we know it was the FBI indictment of Sheng Tao and Rob Bonta's buddies, the Dongs.
Because the Dongs were his benefactors.
The Dongs have given the Bontas a lot of money over the years.
Now, when Rob Bonta was being interviewed on the internet in New York City, did they ask him about buying children?
They did not.
I wonder why. Because, Randy, that's big news back here in California.
And we go to Sacramento for this, where a new member of the Assembly, a Democrat member of the Assembly in Sacramento, a former prosecutor, introduced a bill that would strengthen recent bills and make it a felony for an adult to purchase a 16 or 17-year-old for the purchase of doing it.
What year are we living in?
It's 2025.
You know what this reminds me of? Did you ever take psychology in high school?
I did.
Okay, so did I. And one of the projects that we had to do was we had to do a budget for a family. So you had to come up with an occupation. You had to come up with a type of house that you would live in, what your spouse would do for a living, come up with a budget, and explain how much money you would spend on housing, on food, on utilities, all those things. Did you do that project?
I didn't do that one, but I did do a project where I diagnosed Michael Jackson with multiple personality disorder.
I remember when I turned my project in, I got the red pen where she gave me the B or a C instead of an A. And I questioned my grade. I said, "What are you doing?" I did everything that you asked of me. You said to list an occupation. I did. You said to list an income. I did. You said to list what kind of house you're going to live in. I did. Can you afford it? Yes or no? What is wrong with my paper? And she said, "There's one problem." And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" She said, "You didn't have anything on here for children. Babies cost money." And I looked that woman right in the eye and I said, "What are you talking about? Babies cost money. Babies make money, especially the blonde ones."
So This new member of the Assembly introduces a bill to strengthen laws that were passed last year after a whole lot of public attention got onto this issue, because last year we made it so it's a felony if you purchase a 15-year-old or under for the purposes of sex. But the 16 and 17s were carved out for some reason. Who knows why? So this new member of the Assembly puts forth a bill to strengthen it so 16 and 17-year-olds, if you go after them, you get in a felony. And the Assembly says, no, we're not allowing that. That cannot happen because we made a backroom deal that said we weren't going to do that.
Oh, dear.
Now, when we talk about Assembly committees, killing bills, and backroom deals, there's only one reporter who has got the tenacity to track down every piece of nonsense with this. And once again, we turn it over to KCRA 3 and Ashley Zavala.
Edie, this is an effort that was first introduced by a Republican last year to crack down on the consumers of the child sex trafficking industry. Before last year, it was a misdemeanor in California to purchase a child for sex.
Why?
A misdemeanor. Well, I guess if sexually assaulting a woman in Long Beach right on the street is vandalism, that can be a misdemeanor too.
Do you know what kind of message that sends? Matt Gaetz is going to move here.
With the passage of last year's law, it's now a felony to purchase anyone 15 years old and younger. But now, after a fight over all of this last year, Democratic Sacramento Assembly member Maggie Krell is trying to include 16 and 17-year-olds in that solid felony charge. Even though lawmakers want this changed, we're hearing the reason why it's not is because some Democrats are trying to honor a closed-door deal on this whole issue that was made last year.
What the hell?
Well, don't forget, in these closed-door deals, many times they sign NDAs where they can't even talk about them.
What exactly was the argument in that closed-room deal that we don't want to felonize the purchasing of 16 and 17-year-olds?
I'll tell you what it is. They think if they put these people in prison for a long time, it's going to lead to over-incarceration. And it's really based on racism because they think that it's going to be a certain type of person that's going to get arrested, and they don't want to fill the jails with a certain type of person. And sometimes, frequently, they're wrong about who they think are committing the crimes. Go back to when they were passing all the gun enhancements. They thought they were going to get a bunch of white guys in pickup trucks and throw them in prison for a long time, and they ended up putting gang members in prison for a very long time. Look at what else they're doing right now. They're trying to decriminalize welfare fraud in Sacramento right now. And you know why they're doing it? Because they think, okay, who's the type of person that's committing that crime? They probably think it's immigrants. They probably think it's black people, whatever the case may be. But how much do you want to bet? And I haven't seen the stats on this, but I'll bet you almost anything I'm right. How much do you want to bet that something like that is just like EDD fraud and it's organized crime? Just like selling kids. They think it's a certain type of person. I bet you dimes to donuts it's organized crime who's doing it. So you're not giving a pass to groups that you think are protected classes. Those people are probably working 2 jobs to pay for this mess. You're giving a pass to organized crime.
I was told that it was pulled, and the only way I could get it back on the agenda is if parts of the bill would be blocked.
Former California.
She can't have the provision in the bill where you get a felony if you're arrested for soliciting a 16 or a 17-year-old for sex.
And this is not coming from the Onion.
Former California Department of Justice prosecutor and now Democratic Assembly member Maggie Krell disappointed by what's happened to her bill.
You know what we really need is we need a reboot of To Catch a Predator. Get this issue right in front of the general public. And by the way, I used to watch that show religiously. It was almost exclusively white dudes.
Chris Hansen was the host.
The Assembly Public Safety Committee will not move forward with her proposal that would make it a felony to purchase a 16 or 17-year-old for sex.
Did you expect this? Are you surprised by this, just being a new member in this building?
I think it's a disgrace.
It's evil.
Yeah, well, welcome to Sacramento, sweetheart.
It's evil.
Republican State Senator Shannon Grove, who originally pitched the concept last year, says the Assembly is now trying to honor a closed-door deal between her and the state Senate from last year. That deal allowed what's now state law to move forward. Last year, lawmakers made it a felony to purchase a child 15 years old and younger for sex, while allowing the purchase of 16 and 17-year-olds to be either a misdemeanor or felony.
Shouldn't we know exactly which members of the Assembly and State Senate were advocating to not felonize the purchasing of 16 and 17-year-olds for sex?
Oh, yes, but there's a reason they want to remain anonymous.
Who is supporting that position?
Idiots.
Grove says it was more of an ultimatum.
It was either move forward with 15 and below or get nothing. And so the issue of protecting the 16 and 17-year-olds that we put forward in the bill, because everyone knows, if you asked anybody in California, they should be included in those protections against sex trafficking minors.
Yeah, who exactly is the constituency that supports the idea of keeping the solicitation of 16 and 17-year-olds for sex a misdemeanor?
Wait, wasn't there a member of the Assembly, Phil Ting, I think his name was, who hired a prostitute off of some website, nameyourprice.com or something like that?
As far as we know, she was of age.
Okay. And then he brought her into Sacramento after wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and had her testify for a bill that she didn't even support. I wonder if his name's on that list.
They are minors. They're considered minors under any other circumstance. For it to come from the Senate just because they said so is completely evil. Just evil.
My perspective as chair is that there was a carefully negotiated deal last year.
New Assembly Public Safety Committee Chairman Nick Schultz is the one who ultimately...
Oh, yeah, this guy's a real piece of work. He's the one that killed the bill.
That has to be the most remedial committee in all of Sacramento because they only put the losers on there.
Just evil.
My perspective as chair is that there was a carefully negotiated deal last year.
New Assembly Public Safety Committee Chairman Nick Schultz is the one who ultimately made this latest decision. The negotiation or the deal.
And by the way, just because someone in the past made a deal doesn't mean if you're the guy that's chairman of that committee now, you can't do what's right. They didn't cut that deal with you. They cut that deal with some other guy in a suit.
This is the jackass that replaced Laura Friedman when she went on to Congress, and it shows you it can always get worse.
He is crazier than the one with the purple hair.
The negotiation or the deal that I guess was struck between senators and Senator Grove last year to move her bill with the 15 years old and under forward, I mean, do you think like the regular average California voter, taxpayer, or even victim of this crime, like that would mean anything to them?
Here's what I think. I think the average taxpayer expects to be kept safe in the state of California. They also expect to...
Wouldn't that include 16 and 17-year-olds?
Yeah, so he's what, a budget hawk now?
Here's what I think. I think the average taxpayer expects to be kept safe in the state of California. They also expect a justice system that is fair and equitable.
There's the magic word. We need to not make the solicitation of 16 and 17-year-olds a felony because of equity.
No, this is exactly what it's about. Everything with these people is racial. They think they're going to fill up the prisons with a certain type of person, and they don't want to do that. So this is why they're decriminalizing this activity. But I'm telling you, I know I'm right. It's organized crime.
Fair and equitable. That's what we try to do with the Public Safety Committee. I think whether you're talking about Senate Bill 1414 last year or Assembly Bill 379 this year, the reality is most people are not watching the day-to-day developments of these bills.
Well, that would be until you do something so outrageous that people do pay attention. The only reason the one passed last year was because the Public Safety Committee killed it for no good reason, and all of a sudden, the entire state of California started paying attention to the insanity that goes on in Sacramento.
Oh, the only people who support what this guy is doing are guys who look like Christopher Lloyd that have about 900 stamps from Thailand on their passport.
The reality is most people are not watching the day-to-day developments of these bills.
I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm not going to quit now. And I am going to bring this part of this bill back every year until I get the votes to protect children. That's what I'm going to do.
That new member of the Assembly learned real quick how it works in Sacramento to do something which is pretty much across the board common sense And from her own party, she gets her bill killed.
And if she continues to try these sorts of things, they'll continue to kill her bills.
So Assemblyman Nick Schultz said later this fall he wants to hold informational hearings to go deeper on the 16 and 17-year-olds issue.
You need a hearing in 6 months to figure out that people would like it if it was a felony to solicit a 16-year-old?
Oh, no. They're kicking the can down the road 6 months so everyone will forget about it and the anger will dissipate.
And come back in January with a new proposal. We should note there have been several hearings and discussions on this issue from last year, again, when the idea was originally pitched. And Assemblymember Krell has said over and over again that the point of this is to make it so that the laws are consistent for traffickers and buyers, because those harsher penalties apply to traffickers who traffic children 18 and under, right. And therefore the law, she says, should apply to buyers too.
Why are we protecting people that solicit youth prostitutes?
Do you think any part of this story makes sense?
It does if you live in California.
Buyers, too, right. For that reason.
And so many other laws that apply right. to minors just in general. So there are other parts of Assemblymember Krell's bill that are going to move forward. What should we be looking for there?
Right, yeah. The hearing tomorrow will still allow parts of AB 379 to continue. Those parts include reinstating penalties for those who loiter for prostitution with the intent to purchase anyone.
Oh, that's the bill that they're now trying to fix, the one that they passed that Scott Wiener wrote that said you can't go after anyone walking up and down the street.
Oh, everything that man touches is poison.
We keep electing these people.
We need our heads examined. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to our interview with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, or any of the other interviews or shows we've done in the last several weeks or months, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can listen to the Willie interview. Or, and I might have this wrong, but I think if you go back to January of 2023, you can hear us go through that website that Phil Ting was using and its FAQ on how the prostitutes can be safe.
Oh, yeah. And we went through what was being offered.
That was a best of right there.
A few weeks ago, we did a story about a prison in Northern California where conjugal visits were a regular thing. And two of the women who were going to the prison for, let's just say, a roll in the hay, ended up dead.
Well, and we found out a lot of things. This was two different women over the span of 6 months that went to visit their husbands who were convicted murderers, who they got to spend up to 4 days in a conjugal apartment on the prison site, unsupervised by the prison guards, and both of them were strangled to death.
And the prison even offered up a little love nest for him. I think they call it the Mark Antony and Cleopatra suite, complete with a vibrating bed and a mirror on the ceiling.
It's like the Madonna Inn. Now, Assemblyman David Tongipa of the Central Valley wants to make a new bill where if you happen to be a convicted murderer or you're facing a life sentence, no conjugal visits for you because you're too dangerous.
Okay, I have mixed feelings on this. Because if you're a woman whose judgment is so bad that you're willing to go to a prison for a conjugal visit with a convicted killer, I'm willing to roll the dice with your life.
That is an argument. Maybe you have to sign a whole bunch of waivers before you get onto the prison property, knowing that this experience could and very well may lead to your demise.
What do you think the odds are that you're going to make it out alive?
Maybe that's part of the thrill.
I guess.
These prison pen pal stories, they go places.
Do you think most of these women met them from those pen pal websites, or do you think they knew them before they went in?
Usually, if it's a convicted murderer, they met them online. They met them through one of these things. They're a prison pen pal. It's a lonely woman with a lot of cats looking for a boyfriend that she knows where he's going to be every night.
So you think it's a woman who's like a 2 or 3 out of 10, and the convicted killer is like a 6 or a 7, and they figure the only way they're going to get with a 6 or a 7 is if they're damaged goods.
That could be possible. Let's find out what this new bill is all about. Here is CBS 47 in Fresno.
Assemblyman wants to change the rules for conjugal visits in state prisons. It comes after 2 women died while visiting their husbands.
I would say murdered, actually. Makes it sound like it was a slip and fall.
Wait, how did she describe it?
Assemblyman wants to change the rules for conjugal visits in state prisons. It comes after 2 women died while visiting their husbands.
Wasn't one of them strangled to death?
Both of them died by some form of strangulation. Now, we don't know if this was some kind of consensual strangulation. Some couples are into that. But as far as we know, it wasn't.
Well, didn't one of the guys try to cover up the crime scene or something?
A little bit. He claimed that she had a medical issue.
What happened to your wife here, sir? Well, her head fell off. She was getting pretty old.
Now, do you think the convicted killers that have their wives coming for the conjugal visits, are they in monogamous relationships or they have multiple pen pal wives?
I don't know, but the pool of women who are willing to marry a convicted killer is small, or at least you would hope it would be small.
It's large enough to have a whole TV show about it on TLC.
Well, if they're going to start killing them, they're really going to call the herd.
At a Northern California prison.
Yeah, it's to prevent more deaths. Conjugal visits. CBS 47's Jason Tuctasian joins us live now in the studio with a closer look at the Assemblyman's bill. Jason.
That's right. California is one of 4 states that allow private visits for prison inmates. Now, David Tanguipop.
Wait, so 46 states? No boom boom for you?
So wait, we're one of 4 that allows it to happen?
Yes.
You know why they do it.
Why is that?
Because the guards want them to blow off some steam so they don't fight with each other in the yard.
Isn't that what your cellmate is for?
Well, I thought you were going to say that's what the weights are for, but I guess.
That's right. California is one of 4 states that allow private visits for prison inmates. Now, David Tanguipop doesn't want to take them away entirely, but he does want to take them away from people serving life sentences after 2 visits turned deadly.
We need to put people first and law-abiding citizens first over the criminals, and yet time and time again.
How about we require a full-on mental examination of the women that are voluntarily going for these?
Yeah, I would vote no on this one, honestly.
We don't typically blame the victim here on the John Phillips Show, but she had it coming.
No. If you are willingly going to a prison to have a conjugal visit with a convicted killer, you take your chances. What can I say?
Criminals, for some reason, are getting first.
Assemblyman Tanguipop wants to change how conjugal visits are handled in California. This after 2 women were killed last year at Mule Creek State Prison outside of Sacramento.
If you are a murderer, why would you get the option to visit with your family when I think about the victim's family who will never get the option to see their family member again that they lost?
According to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, Tanya Thomas and Stephanie Dowells were both strangled to death while visiting their husbands at Mule Creek.
My goodness.
2 in a short period of time.
Their deaths were just 4 months apart, and both men were...
Literally what happened was there was an investigator for CBS News that was calling for an update on the first one, and the person at the prison said, wait, which one are you talking about?
Okay, do you think the second one knew what happened to the first one and willingly continued with the conjugal visit?
I don't know if it was public knowledge at that point, but it's definitely possible.
Because they probably sit in the same waiting room waiting to go in, don't they? She was probably sitting there with her leopard print top saying, hey, where's Sally? Usually she has the device to take the lint off. What happened to her?
Their deaths were just 4 months apart, and both men were serving life sentences for murder.
I think this is irresponsible. I think murderers need 24-hour supervision. I think they should not have conjugal visits. They have not earned it.
Tanguipop wants to take away conjugal visits altogether from prisoners serving life sentences without parole. Local criminal defense attorney Mark King says these visits can last up to 4 days.
4 days?
My God. How much stamina do these guys have?
4 days of unsupervised do whatever you want in there, including strangle your wife to death?
Well, that's why they do it. After 4 days of that, they don't have the energy to fight in the yard.
Local criminal defense attorney Mark King says these visits can last up to 4 days.
Several state prisons have an apartment.
After 4 days with the wife, he wants to go back to prison.
Yeah, no kidding.
Several state prisons have an apartment set up where there's a...
Who designed a prison so it could have an apartment for banging?
Oh, my God.
What happened to the trailer?
You know, I've watched a lot of Lockup on MSNBC. I've never seen this happen.
Several state prisons have an apartment set up where there's a bedroom, there's a living room, there's a kitchen, and inmates who are on good behavior, and
including the prison that's pretty much for murderers.
Wait, so we give them a kitchen too? Yeah, that's what these guys need. Knives.
And are not on death row and have not been convicted of sexually violent crimes are eligible to apply.
So if you're a convicted rapist, no conjugal visits for you. If you're a convicted murderer, go to town.
Who wrote these rules?
The more we examine the regulations in Sacramento among anything that has to do with the criminal justice system, you just end up scratching your noggin over and over again.
It had to make sense to someone. I want to meet that person.
For conjugal visits.
According to King, those visits have stopped.
That prison and other prisons around the state have temporarily suspended conjugal visits while they review their procedures.
And King says change is...
How many potential third victims are out there irritated that California shut down the conjugal visits?
Oh, I'm sure they're furious.
While they review their procedures.
And King says change is coming.
I'm sure if conjugal visits continue in California, they're going to be much more careful about what type of inmate is granted that privilege.
Why start now?
So this is what woke them up to the fact that convicted killers might be violent if given the opportunity.
And Tonga tells me he's actively working on legislation with his colleagues. In studio, Jason Toktagian, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
Now, John, what are the chances that the Public Safety Committee kills that bill?
Oh, 100%. That bill's not going anywhere. Just another normal day here in the insane asylum. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Mile writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Hey, guys, if I wanted to purchase a 16-year-old at Target, would they be locked up behind glass? Just asking for a friend.
How ghetto does it look that they have to lock up the socks?
And traffic right now is all gummed up in downtown L.A.
Yes, because the SEIU, the 55,000 L.A. County workers that went on strike, are blocking traffic, creating an unlawful assembly because they want raises, even though the county of Los Angeles is broke.
And if you're seeing the images on TV, it's exactly what you would expect. It's a bunch of people protesting in the streets wearing purple T-shirts that are about 3 sizes too small. Maybe if they get that raise, they'll be able to afford bras. All right. We know that Proposition 36 passed on the November ballot. That repealed Proposition 47, the Soft on Crime Initiative. And local district attorneys are already using Prop 36 to their advantage.
We're starting to see the point in the process where people have been arrested, charged, and now, for the first time in Kern County, we're seeing somebody who has been sentenced under Prop 36. So let's see exactly how this law has changed sentencing for a repeat offender in Kern County. Here is KERO.
Dustin Dean Towery, the first person to be charged under the new Prop 36 guidelines, was officially sentenced on Monday. I'm Sam Hoyle, your neighborhood reporter. According to court records, Towery was on probation for a previous violation.
Of course.
There you go.
The whole concept of probation has been thrown out the window because there are now so few probation officers that are actually able to go out into the field and check on these people. There is no supervision because they threw all the probation officers into the overrun juvenile halls because George Gascon took all of the gang members that should have been tried as adults and put them in the juvie.
When they give you probation, that's a hollow punishment.
Towery pled no contest to a charge of shoplifting 2 electric scooters from a Target back in December with 2 or more.
2 scooters? How rude.
How do you even do that?
Well, I would imagine you take the first one out of the box and you ride it while holding the other one to get out of the Target.
But don't you need your hands to ride a scooter?
That's a good point.
With 2 or more prior convictions and was sentenced to a split 2-year sentence, 1 year in jail, the second under mandatory supervision or probation.
Not great, but it's a little better than it was. And look, here's the problem. Proposition 36 was very well intended, and I'm very excited to see the results where more arrests are being made, more of these cases are being charged exponentially in places like Kern County, even in Los Angeles County, and definitely up in San Francisco County. But the problem is Prop 36 still conflicts with AB 109, the prison realignment back in 2011. Jerry Brown in the Assembly and the state Senate's way to depopulate the prisons. Because even though Prop 36 says that if you are a 3-time thief and you get charged, you're going to prison for 3 years, AB 109 says we don't prison anyone who's nonviolent. And theft is nonviolent, so they get kicked down to the jails. And if the jails are overcrowded, it doesn't matter if you were charged under Prop 36, you're getting out on probation.
You can sentence them to whatever. You need a place to put them.
Following his time in jail, Towery is required to knowingly stay at least 100 yards away from all Kern County Target stores.
So what, he can rob the Walmart?
And pay restitution. That amount has not been determined as of Monday morning.
How much were those 2 scooters?
Towery was deemed eligible for prosecution under Prop 36 statutes due to several prior misdemeanor and felony judgments. Proposition 36 was voted into law by California voters this past election cycle and aims to increase penalties for repeat offenders. According to a spokesperson for the district attorney's office, prior to Prop 36, it's likely that Towery would have been cited and released.
I mean, we're going from a little punishment back to where it was with no punishment, so it's something.
And I love the fact that they regard this as being like Saudi Arabia and Sacramento.
For misdemeanor theft and would have faced a maximum of 1 year in prison, but probation was a common sentence. According to the DA's office, as a result of the community support of Prop 36, the district attorney's office is responding in kind by being the county in California with the highest Prop 36 filings per capita, over 500 cases since it took effect.
They're number 1.
I think I told you, I have a good friend who's a deputy DA in Orange County. And she told me that they're filing Prop 36 cases right and left, and the judges are all upset because they're clogging up the system.
Well, not only that, but Prop 36 cases that have been filed in Los Angeles County, thanks to Nathan Hochman, have possibly thrown a wrench into the plans for LA County to close Men's Central Jail, because now they can't because there's too many people going to jail.
Good.
Towery was represented by the Public Defender's Office during this case. We spoke with Jano Mateo, Chief Deputy Public Defender, who said he believes that Prop 36 does not adequately address the needs of the community.
Oh, boy, here we go.
I think 4 or 5 years down the road, somebody's going to look back at this and say, did we really make the right decision?
We did.
Yeah, and guess what? If you went to a law school that advertises on Maury, your opinion doesn't count.
Are we really addressing the needs of the community? Are we addressing the systematic problem that is prevalent in the community, which is the homelessness?
How exactly is it a crime of poverty to steal 2 scooters?
This is what they always say. They always say, well, it's the circumstances that the person was living in that caused them to do this. So address that and don't punish the crime.
Well, the circumstances were they're a meth head, and we used to just keep them in prison where they couldn't do meth. But we leave them out to do all the meth that they want, and they need to steal to keep up that habit.
Well, we also used to put them in the nut house. We need to bring those back, too.
The mental health. That's what we need to address. If we address those problems, I think you're not going to have these issues.
And that is why if you ever see a judge's race and the person listed that's running for a judge used to be a public defender, you do not vote for that person.
No, run for the hills.